Thank you so much for being with us for this episode of Made in America. And, we are so proud to be able to fill in for Greg Owens and talk about the value of manufacturing products. I mean, we see problems, we solve problems, we make products to solve those problems. And when we can make them in America, well, yippee, because that's better for everybody. We have better quality, we have faster service, and, we make a difference for every consumer living here. And I think it's a wonderful, we're kind of in this magical time frame right now where we can see new technology being applied to consumer products and bringing that manufacturing now, instead of assuming that it had to be made someplace else, we can make it in America. So my first guest today is Leo York from Kentucky. He is an inventor himself. He has helped lots of inventors get through the inventing process. Leo, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell America, what did you invent?
Oh man, I've come up with a lot of things, mostly in sort of the toy and house good arena, but really my big focus is just educating other would-be inventors and entrepreneurs on, how they can jump over all the different hurdles to ultimately go from concept to product.
Well, you have helped inventors deal with the issue of made in America and can't make in America. And so we're seeing a lot of things now coming back, like Stitch Kentucky. And I know that there are a lot of places that, are starting that small manufacturing, and especially with the new technology. I mean, it used to be that we could never get a prototype made. You always had to go out to
Right.
get the mold made unless you were spending tens of thousands of dollars. And now almost every town in America has got a rapid prototype machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's maker spaces all over. That's always a really good option to check out first and foremost, because quite often they'll have six, seven figure equipment that you can get for, a couple of gym per month membership fees.
I know it's really been interesting to watch that technology change. So when you get an inventor that says, I want to make it in America, and we're thinking, yes, let's make it in America, how do you advise them? What do you tell them to look for?
One thing I always tell them is your price point is going to have to reflect that, and your market is going to have to be different from if you were going with a more global means of sourcing. It's going to have to be made better. It's going to have to be made to last, and you're going to be prominent about how it is domestically sourced, how it is made in America. I'm even seeing people. I don't know how it is in Tennessee. I would imagine it's similar. There's even state versions of it now where it's like, everything in this product is Kentuckian, and, you're not going to find a single bolt or screw from Oklahoma in this product. It's all made in Kentucky. So I'm seeing even more uh, regional and localized version of Made in America.
Well, and I am starting now that, we're paying more attention to that. I think in this phase of our economy is like, where are things made? And when somebody says, oh, it's you're right, it's not all just made in Kentucky or all made in, Texas. Made in America is thriving and learning and growing.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is probably for the first time in several decades, this is probably one of the times where I would actually advise people to try to source locally. And beforehand, that was a much more uphill battle. Now it's getting a little bit more on even keel from sourcing globally.
So what are your favorite things that you see are made in America?
Oh, wow. Most ag products in general, and that includes heavy machinery. I'm seeing a lot more of that. Rick will be joining us. The Great Plate is made exclusively in America. A lot of our students now have launched products, and it's just amazing to see because originally they would have to source that from China or from Vietnam, sometimes from Mexico. And now a bunch of them are sourcing not just from America, but a lot of times they're creating these relationships with people in the same town, and they're driving 15 minutes to go pick up the parts instead of it coming via shipping container. It's been a very strange transformation.
Well, and the other thing that I think a lot of consumers don't realize is that if the inventor's got to have certain things made overseas, we can actually ship those in. And most of your metropolitan areas actually have places where, challenged folks, maybe retired veterans, are able to go into a location and put a product together for the mass marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we call that the hybrid approach. Yeah, source what you can from where you can and have it actually built here.
I,
That's becoming more common too.
yeah, there was one in Denver, there was one in the Chicago area. A lot of the major metropolitan areas will have those resources where you can get the parts in, all the parts, even if you've got to have, parts made in one place and then something shipped in from out of the country and they land in a facility and it's put together so it is then assembled in America.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a wonderful time to be able to, say, okay, America, we've got these products. There's actually a platform out there that competes with, that other guy that is, made in the USA. So all the products on this platform, madeintheusa.com, out there, every product there is manufactured in America. So if you want to go and see, if you're looking for something, and they've got thousands of products that are listed. So obviously there are some people that are making in the USA. So when you go out there and you
Absolutely.
say, all right, before I go looking at this other platform, let's go look at madeintheusa.com and see if our product or something that will work on that product is out there. And yes, go look, support America. And, all right, sometimes it is a little bit more expensive, but you know what? It lasts a lot longer. And a lot of, I've ordered things that were made in that other place, and you can't return them if they don't work.
That's
It's going to
very
cost more to
true.
pay for shipping to return it than if you just went and bought in America and paid a little bit more. And oh, yeah, there was a guarantee with it.
No, absolutely.
So, we're looking forward to this kind of time frame of seeing what happens with American manufacturing, really featuring the products that are made in the USA. So we are looking forward to our next guest, who has been manufacturing in the US for what, 9 years or so? Long time.
We'll find out. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep. We are going to find out. So, America, stick with us. We are going to be back with a product called Great Plate. And the inventor of Great Plate, we're going to find out exactly what Great Plate is. And you know what? We're going to tell you several times where you can go and buy it so that you are supporting American made, American inventors. And you know what? When you do that, you get a bigger bang for your buck, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So stay with us, everybody. We will be right back with our added guest, not our next guest, but he's going to join me and Leo and talk about his product. Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America, because America does make, manufacture, and sell products to the American consumer. And we are so glad to have you so that you can, pay attention to this great new product that's out there and then be able to go and log in to our different sites where we've posted all of these different products and, help the American economy. Buy American. Rick, thanks so much for being with us today. You and your wife, we're going to do another segment where we talk about the husband-wife teams that working together to invent a product, because I am sure you've got some really fun stories to tell about that. And at what point do you then get couples therapy? So tell us about Great Plate and how you kind of work through the process of being able to get it made in America.
Well, it was pretty simple. We had no intentions of making it anywhere else, and Leo will be the first one to tell you we're not that smart. So if once we have an idea of doing something, this is what we did. We had messy kids, and they were downstairs watching television. We came upstairs and said we need to go buy this plate, and it wasn't available. We went online, couldn't find it, and we ended up going to somebody that could make a prototype for us. And 9 years later, we're an overnight success.
Yeah, I love that. 9 years later, an overnight success. So, all right. So obviously there were a few challenges in there. First of all, where is it made? How did you find, that manufacturer, feet on the ground, USA, that was going to make it at a price the consumer would pay?
Sure. My wife and I are in the mortgage industry. That's where we got our start. And one of our customers owned an injection molding company. So we went over there and said, what do you think of this product? And they thought we could make it. And here we are. I mean, basically, we've made it in Wisconsin all of our lives. Right now, part of it's made in Minnesota, but we touch about 50 different companies. With this last order, we just went over 27 million plates that we've manufactured to date.
Wow.
Right
That's
now,
amazing.
thank you. It's been an interesting run. If I had any real friends, they probably would have talked me into licensing it or to do something else. But, you know, unfortunately, I met Leo and Stephen Key later in life. So now this is where this next project is. But to answer your question, where it's easily found, it's in Walmart now. It's in the grocery section under plates. We just finished running another 1 million plates for Walmart. So their purchase order is projected to be a lot larger than that. But yeah, we're 100% made in US. US sourced materials, US packaging, it's recycled packaging. In fact, the plastic that we're using for the disposable plate is what they call rPET. It's a recycled plastic, and it's BPA free. It's a wonderful product. Plastic by plastic standards, if we put them in the ground, all of them are going to last over 100 years in the ground. The difference with ours is compared to our competitors, it's a number 5 recycle. Actually, in a lot of cases, we have a number 1 recycle for our disposable, which means it's the easiest one. Our plates are made out of recycled water bottles, so that they're all domestic bottles in that process. So that's one of the things that really worked well for us. That's the material. So that's we're trying to have an environmentally conscious footprint.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
All right. So
not only are you helping the American economy, you're helping the environment, the ecosystem in the United States.
Exactly.
Nice.
So explain the name. Why is it a great plate?
Not
everybody, you know, they've got a vision. All right, you got all different kinds of plates out there. Why is yours? And how did you get that domain name?
Well, we paid for it. I mean, we got caught on a trolling situation where you search for it in the search engines, and all of a sudden we ended up with greatplate.net, ended up paying a few $1,000s more for the greatplate.com.
Good for you.
Now, we had a number of names. There's a lot of stories behind that, which we'll tell you another time. But basically, it came down to somebody looking at it and said, you know, that's a great plate. And it said, well, there it is. That's as simple as it was.
Yeah, I know that I was, you know, kind of resemble that remark because I was down at the Denver Metro Chamber one day and somebody walked up to me and they said, I know you, you're that inventor lady. It's like, it works for me. So
There you go.
I got inventorlady.com and we were off to the races.
Nice. Nice.
So tell our listeners, why is it a great plate?
Well, it helps you hold your food and your beverage all in one hand if you're standing. It also helps prevent it from falling when you're on the couch. There's all kinds of convenient pieces out there. We were actually surprised that the product didn't even exist in its form that it was. So we went through a couple of variations. It was round at first. It looked like a chip dip container. That's still a great one for us. But 2 problems with it. It had an identity crisis because it looked like a chip dip container. The other problem was if you turned it over, it flew better than any Frisbee we had. We actually took it to the University of Wisconsin. It flew all the way across the stadium. And it's like, yeah, this is not going to work for concessions.
Rippy.
I can imagine a football game where there's 1,000 plates flying over the stadium and nobody's looking at the football.
Right. And then we developed a square one, and the square one has a wine glass holder in the corner so that you can hold a stemmed wine glass, because that was one of the things people said, well, it doesn't hold a stemmed wine glass. And that was that piece.
Excellent. And yes, as a, you know, person who enjoys a glass of wine, I would want a wine glass holder in my plate. It, you know, steps it up a notch in, you know, just the way things look when you're out in a group of people, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I am sure that your wife and her.
Oh, sorry. Go for it.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I'm sure that your wife's friends appreciate the wine glass holder.
Yes, we all do.
And from what I understand, you also have sort of licensed iterations. Can you tell us more about that? The you know, different themes that people can buy.
We're going to hold that one until we come back from break. All right, so that's a little bit conversation. I don't want to cut you off, but you can think about
No,
it
no,
while we go and pay
I'm
some
used to
bills.
podcasts, so I forget. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So we have to pay attention to our timing and thanking our sponsors and getting those bills paid. So everybody stick with us. We're going to be back and find out about some of those different themes that Great Plate has. And if you are curious and you are sitting at your computer listening to this, you can go and check out greatplate.com while we go to a commercial break. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America. And we are talking to the inventor of Great Plate. He and his wife saw a problem, came up with a solution, and like he said, after 9 years, they were an overnight success. But one of the questions that Leo had right before we went to break was, what are the different themes that you've got, that you've licensed some different themes? So Rick, tell our listeners about the different themes that you've experienced and come up with and put out there for the consumer.
Yeah, we started imprinting the plates with in-mold labeling, and what that we did, it gave us the ability to license product for some events. We've done some colleges, we've done some festivals that have been done, but most recently we've done the National Park Series, we've done a patriotic series of imprints that are in there, and then we did a faith-based group that was in there. So those are the three that we've done to date so far. And it's been widely well received. So probably this next year involved will be getting more involved in collegiate licensing through the NIL.
Exciting. That's,
Thank you.
so ultimately, where are you going with this? Just sell worldwide and knock it dead? Or are you looking at some time, you want to be able to retire and you're going to hand it off to your children?
Well, the retirement's there. The children thing is probably something different. We have 6 kids, so we'll see how that goes when that happens. But right now, we're seeing where it runs. A funny story that happened to us this last fall, we were at the Walmart U.S. Manufacturing Summit, and we hooked up with the buyer like we normally do for our plastic product. And then another buyer came in and said they would like to meet with us as well. After we met with the first buyer, which is the traditional buyer for the plastic, the second one we realized was for disposable. And there was that little bit of pause. Well, do we meet with them because this is not a disposable product? We did. And they looked at it and said, can you make it disposable? And I thought, well, you know what? We can. There's something that's out there in order to make it happen. So we asked some questions. We asked where they wanted to be price wise and how many units they wanted to do and could we manufacture it. And here we are 6 months later, and the first 1,000,000 pieces are on the shelves at the Walmart. It sells for $4.96 for 10 plates. It's a neat value, and we've received very good responses on it. So that's a neat piece. It also solved a problem because people said to our, we want to use it for tailgating. And the challenge that we had with that was you go tailgating and you come home and the car's been 90 degrees in the parking lot and you have dirty plates in the car. My wife was the first one to tell you this is not a really good idea. And now what
Yeah.
we did is we made sure that the plastic that we used is recyclable. So now you can pick up a 10-pack for less than $5 and go ahead and recycle it.
Excellent. Excellent. So, the years ago, decades ago, the guy that invented that little white pizza ring that fit inside the pizza box ended up handing over the company to his granddaughter. And she was running it when I was still living in Denver, and they were still selling little white pizza rings, but it had been a total family, endeavor. It just skipped a generation in all of that.
Weird.
Well, we're fortunate to have kids that have careers that they like. Not all of them have been bitten by the entrepreneurial spark. We have actuarial scientists, we have commercial artists, and we have attorneys. So right
There
now
you
it's
go.
I'm sure they'll enjoy the inheritance when it's done, but it's been a good run.
There you go. There you go. So, have you ever looked at inventing anything outside of the Great Plates, or that one just sucks up all of your time and energy, and so you stick with it?
No, actually, I took the challenge from a couple other people. I'm about to be able to tell you in about a few weeks that we have another product that's actually bigger than Great Plate. So it's much
Really?
bigger and a lot more successful. This one we're licensing though to a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You'll see it on the retail shelves pretty quickly, but it was always kind of interesting because we did a presentation at the University of Michigan, actually Michigan State, and a young man came up to us and said, all due respect, I appreciate what you did, but you got really lucky. You know, there's a lot of us that are out there working, but you got really, really lucky. That was our round plate at the time. And I said, well, then make something better than what we did. He said, well, it's impossible. It's already been done. Well, 6 months later, we had the square one, and that outsold the round one 10-1. So if he would have listened to that advice at the time, that would have been fine. Now, this new project was one where we're doing a license project, and it's similar where we're going to sell for a certain price and receive royalties for the next 10 years. So it can be done. So just inspire yourself, believe in yourself. And, you know, people look at our product right now and said, I wish I would have thought of that. Now, this next message is going to be, all right, we did this. This is a completely different industry. Solve a problem. My mother will tell you at the age of 64, I spent the first half of my life causing problems. It's the second half that I'm solving problems. So that's the theme behind what we're doing right now.
There you go. There you go. So, you know, when you've given some good advice to, you know, the inventors. I don't know anybody out there that hasn't at one point said, gee, I wish I had invented that. I wish I'd come up with that idea, not realizing that there's a lot of times they do come up with ideas on solving a problem that's in the kitchen, in the backyard, on the job, wherever, and they don't take that first step to find out, has it been done? And, can I do the duct tape cardboard version of a prototype? So, talk us through that. How do you encourage someone? It's like, don't be afraid of taking a step.
Well, the best thing you could do, Rita, is ask a lot of questions. I mean, with the internet right now, you can do a lot more quick searches. One of the things to do is the freedom to operate, the FTO. That'll tell you a lot of whether things are out there. I mean, this new product that I was alluding to before, we've done that now. And the idea is it also gives you a path as to how you can patent it. The other thing is if you're going to patent it, don't be afraid to talk to people. Get them and get an NDA in front of these people and start to talk. Everybody's paranoid that you can't talk to anybody. And then by the time you're done, 10 years has gone by and, someone else came up with a similar idea. This one that we're doing with the freedom to operate on our patent side was that we looked at it and said, there's like 4 or 5 other people that have the same product that's out there, but no one's taken it to market yet. And no one patented the product yet in the process. In fact, the interesting thing about our plate was we found 1,721 versions of our plate that's out there, but no one took it to market. So we were 1,722 and we took it to market. So
wow. That's amazing. And, we see I have some people call me and they show me their idea and I'm thinking, that's a really bad idea. And I know I do not buy every product that hits the marketplace or I would live in a barn. But there's certain things that's like, okay, that's cool. I would not necessarily buy that thing, but it is still a really cool product. And then there's some I see that's like, holy mackerel, what were you thinking? And, I try to be very delicate when I tell the inventor, it's like, I think you should maybe move on to your next idea because probably shouldn't go there.
Yeah, Mr. Wonderful on Shark Tank's got an expression for that. Take it around the back of the barn and shoot it.
Yeah. That's one way of looking at it. That is one way of looking at it. And there are times when that's kind of where I go too.
Yeah, you can save people a lot of time. And what will the market bear? I can't make a $20 plate and people buy it. So.
No, exactly. Exactly. I mean, we look at doing, the search, what's out there, what's being sold in the marketplace, is yours different enough to make a difference that you're going to draw enough of the marketplace. And, even though some products, they are different, and for that one inventor, they might really like that product, there's not enough of a market capacity for it that it makes sense.
Sure. Well, one of the things I can share with you, and I know we're coming up on another segment, is how to address your patents and how the patents protect you and what you can do about Chinese imports, because that's one of the things that we came up against, which was really, really strong. And how do you get satisfaction out of this and how do you prevent it from happening in the future? Because that's one thing that the NDA will protect you on certain things, but patents are not an insurance policy. And I can tell you what we did personally on that.
They're a tool. They're a piece of the puzzle. And, when I'm helping an inventor go after a licensing deal, the patent is one step. And, it allows you to negotiate and to say, this is mine. You can't use it. You can't have it. You don't get to trade on it. And, I've got a gentleman this morning that just, sent me some information. And so now we're digging down to find out what that competition is doing. So anyway, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. America, thank you for being with us. And we will be back next week with more Made in America, because it's all about now being able to invent it, get it to market, and make it in America. So thanks everybody for being with us. And gentlemen, we will have you both back again. Hi, America, and thank you so much for being with us for this segment of Made in America. And you know what? When you go out there and you're looking for a product and you say, all right, let me see if I can find Made in America, by all means, go and look, because if it is Made in America, it says Made in America. And we want to be able to support all those entrepreneurs out there who are taking the risk and getting a product out there. But you know what? If you're buying Made in America, it's going to be, one, better made, it's going to last longer, and you are going to be supporting the economy that you depend on. So everybody out there, if you're not the inventor, you are definitely the consumer. So go and look for Made in America. Our guest this segment is Rick with the inventor of, he and his wife invented Great Plate, and Leo from Kentucky. He is, an educator of inventors, a longtime inventor himself, so he knows the road basically, and helps a lot of inventors like Rick make good decisions early on, because it's so easy in those early stages to get wrapped up the wrong way and make a ton of mistakes. And I know that Rick wanted to be able to talk about, just the role that the patent plays. And we're big on this as a licensing agent. For me, it's all about, do we have a good patent? Can we license that intellectual property? And it's not all of it, but it is certainly an important piece of it. So, what did you learn in those steps, Rick, about, do you file, should you file, and then, what's the advantage of filing?
Well, early on when we decided to invest in the product, we invested a lot of our retirement money. I told my wife not to worry, we would get a patent and we would get a design and a utility patent. The attorneys that we worked with described the fact that designs are fine unless you have 6 degrees of separation, which can void your patent, or you get a utility patent. And the story that I tell is that we heard back from our attorneys about 6 weeks into it. We used Foley and Lardner, the largest IP firm in the country. And 3 of our design patents were accepted and our utility patent was declined. And I told my wife that. She said, but you promised that we would have this patent. And I said, well, that's okay. We have design patents, but our attorneys told us that that's not going to be as strong in order to do this. So she went to bed that night very angry, very upset. And I do a lot of praying with our stuff. And the attorney said, we can't change one drawing. We can't change one word in the abstract at all. So you're pretty well stuck with this. So I looked at page 5, and in there was a section where we go, as I was describing it to you earlier, flies like a Frisbee. And we said, we switched it from being a plate that holds a drink to it's a flying disc that can be used to hold food and a drink. And they approved our utility patent based on that. So it's a matter of how do you switch it around? Now, since that time, 2 major retailers who I cannot and will not tell you who their names are, but we settled with both of them for large amounts of money. The one retailer actually took our name and put it on the shelf, Great Plate. They designed the product identical to ours, and they violated our design, our utility patents, and everything. The samples that we did for the company were in teal blue. They came back in from China in teal blue to be on the shelf. So we have photos, we have the whole thing. And I will tell you, if you think that you won the lottery by going up against a lawsuit like this, to defend your patents of any magnitude, it's going to cost you anywhere between $200,000 to $400,000. Our lawsuit between the 2 firms went in excess of $300,000. We had $100,000 in patent work in this process. And I'll tell you, the end result was not something that is going to be a pleasant experience. They will judge it and they award damages based on your amount of sales. And the good news, we caught them. The bad news, we caught them really early, and they didn't have a lot of sales behind it. So they'll only pay you a fraction of what can be done in this process. So I will tell you, in the patent world, the legal system is not the justice system. So you have to be very careful as to what you do. My best advice on patents is to get early and quick to the market and make sure that your product is priced correctly and do this. Now, the interesting thing was the company that knocked us off, that did the great plate and the name and all that type of thing. They turned us down because they said a $2.99 retail will never work, and it won't work for that company. Well, when they brought it in and they put great plate on the shelves, guess what they sold it for? $2.99, and it
Yeah.
sold out instantly. So we did have our proof points. So that story has resonated with a number of retailers, and that's why we're on the shelves that we're onto right now. So does it do the things that it's supposed to do? Yes. Can it be done? Yes. This is how we do it. But that's the important part about the patent world. People think, okay, we're going to do this. You're not going to find a lot of people. For first and foremost, you reach out to the retailer and tell them that you violated the patent. They don't call you back because
Yeah.
they don't want to talk to you. It's like you're going to have to keep pushing in order to get that other part through.
Yeah, I know one of the attorneys that we go to most often with inventors who call me up and say, "Oh, I need some help," and he used to be an examiner, so he knows the ins and outs, and it has made a huge difference for our inventors to be able to get, one, the drafting and the responses that they need to get it through. But then when we go after the licensing, it certainly does make a difference for the licensees because they want to know that they can defend it. But it's not the be all and end all. It's part of the process, and it can be a difficult part of the process. And so we look at, if you can't go down that route, do you really want to go to market? Because you've got nothing then to stand on. So there's a lot of elements that, going into and getting a product to market. I think a lot of our consumers don't realize how difficult it can be, and that when they go and they buy the product and they're basically giving you a thumbs up when they go to the cash register and pay it, it's like, good work, Rick, for sticking in there and doing the job. And thank you so much for being with us today. You've got a lot of information to share with the consumers and to share with other inventors. So we will have you on again, and might get you on for one of those guest speaking spots on the Inventors Roundtable shoot, so you can share your stories. Thanks everybody for being with us for this segment of Made in America, because we want all of our products that are made in America to be shared with the U.S. consumer. And we need you out there. So check in with us next time when we will be talking to a different inventor, different topics, and all about manufacturing in America.